The National Electrical Code, or NEC, does not contain a direct statement explicitly prohibiting the hanging of non-electrical equipment from cable trays. However, several articles and sections within the NEC provide guidance that can be interpreted as discouraging or even prohibiting such practices based on the intended use and safety considerations. Article 392.14 addresses the uses to which cable trays are permitted. It states that cable trays shall be used for the support of electrical cables and associated fittings only. While it doesn't explicitly say what cannot be done, the implication is that the only items intended to be supported by a cable tray are electrical cables and their associated fittings. Hanging a curtain, which is undoubtedly non-electrical equipment, would therefore be outside the scope of the cable tray's intended purposes defined by this article. Section 500.4 pertains to equipment in classified hazardous locations. It mandates that equipment be installed in a manner that ensures it's safe from physical damage. Although a TV studio may not be a classified hazardous location requiring adherence to Article 500.4, the principle of preventing physical damage to equipment is still a sound one. Hanging a curtain from a cable tray introduces the potential for physical damage in several ways. Firstly, the added weight of the curtain, especially if it's a heavy or bulky curtain, could potentially overload the cable tray system. Cable trays are designed with specific load-bearing capacities, and exceeding these capacities can lead to structural failure, causing the tray to sag, bend, or even collapse. Secondly, the act of hanging the curtain itself could cause damage to the cable tray or the electrical cables within it. Improperly installed hangers could chafe against the cables, damaging their insulation and creating a potential electrical hazard. Additionally, the curtain could obstruct access to the cables for maintenance or repairs, making it more difficult to identify and address any issues that may arise. Thirdly, the curtain itself could become a physical hazard if it were to fall. If the curtain is not securely attached to the cable tray, it could detach and fall, potentially injuring someone or damaging equipment below. This risk is particularly relevant in a TV studio, where there are likely to be people working and expensive equipment present. Beyond the NEC, it's important to consider the manufacturer's specifications for the cable tray system. Cable tray manufacturers typically provide guidelines on the types of equipment that can be supported by their trays, as well as the maximum load-bearing capacity. Exceeding these specifications could void the warranty on the cable tray system and increase the risk of structural failure. Furthermore, local building codes and regulations may have additional requirements regarding the use of cable trays. These codes may prohibit the hanging of non-electrical equipment from cable trays, even if the NEC does not explicitly do so. From an engineering perspective, there are several reasons to avoid hanging non-electrical equipment from cable trays. Firstly, cable trays are not designed to support the weight or stress of non-electrical equipment. The added weight can cause the cable tray to sag or even collapse, which can damage the electrical cables that are running through the tray. Secondly, hanging non-electrical equipment from cable trays can create a safety hazard. If the equipment falls, it could injure someone or damage property. Thirdly, hanging non-electrical equipment from cable trays can make it difficult to access and maintain the electrical cables. The equipment can block access to the cables, making it difficult to inspect, repair, or replace them. In summary, while the NEC does not have a specific, explicit prohibition against hanging non-electrical equipment from cable trays, a combination of factors suggests that it is not a good practice. These factors include the intended use of cable trays is defined in Article 392.14, the potential for physical damage is addressed in Section 500.4, manufacturer specifications, local building codes, and general engineering considerations. It is always best to err on the side of caution and avoid any practice that could compromise the safety or functionality of the electrical system. It would be prudent to explore alternative methods for hanging the curtain that do not involve the cable tray system. This might include installing a separate support structure specifically designed for hanging curtains. This approach would ensure that the cable tray system is used only for its intended purpose and that the curtain is supported safely and securely. Here's a breakdown of the key considerations and potential code interpretations. Firstly, intended use. Article 392.14 clearly states the intended use of cable trays is for electrical cables and associated fittings only. This implies that hanging non-electrical items is outside the intended use and could be considered a violation. Secondly, physical damage. Section 500.4 requires equipment to be installed safely and protected from physical damage. Hanging items from the cable tray can create a risk of damage to the tray, the cables within it, or the hanging item itself, especially if the installation isn't properly engineered. Thirdly, load considerations. Cable trays are designed for specific load capacities related to electrical cables. Adding the weight of a curtain or other non-electrical item could exceed this capacity, leading to potential structural failure. The NEC doesn't provide specific load calculation guidelines for non-electrical uses of cable trays, making it difficult to ensure compliance. Fourthly, access and maintenance. Hanging items could obstruct access to the cables within the tray for inspection, maintenance, or future modifications, violating the general intent of the NEC to ensure safe and accessible electrical installations. Fifthly, listing and labeling. Cable trays are typically listed and labeled for specific uses related to electrical cables. Hanging non-electrical items could void the listing or labeling, potentially creating liability issues. Sixthly, engineering judgment. While the NEC provides guidelines, it also relies on the engineer's or installer's judgment to ensure a safe and compliant installation. Hanging non-electrical items from cable trays requires careful consideration of all the above factors and a sound engineering judgment that the installation is safe and does not violate the intent of the NEC. Consider these alternatives. If the architect wants to hang the curtain, explore alternative support methods that don't involve the cable tray. This could include installing a separate track or support system specifically designed for hanging curtains. Ensure that any alternative support system is properly engineered and installed to meet all applicable codes and safety standards. Document your concerns clearly. Document your concerns about hanging the curtain from the cable tray and the potential violations of the NEC. Communicate these concerns to the architect and explain the reasons why it is not a recommended practice. If the architect insists on hanging the curtain from the cable tray, obtain a written statement from them acknowledging the risks and potential code violations. Consult with an electrical engineer if there is any doubt about the safety or compliance of hanging non-electrical items from cable trays. Consult with a qualified electrical engineer. The engineer can perform a load analysis, assess the potential risks, and recommend a safe and compliant solution. Other considerations include the following. Cable trays come in various materials, such as steel, aluminum, and fiberglass, each with its own load-bearing characteristics. The material of the cable tray will affect its ability to support the weight of the curtain. The size and gauge of the cable tray will also affect its load-bearing capacity. A larger and thicker cable tray will be able to support more weight than a smaller and thinner cable tray. The way in which the cable tray is supported will also affect its ability to support weight. Cable trays that are supported by multiple hangers will be able to support more weight than cable trays that are supported by only a few hangers. The type of curtain that is being hung will also affect the amount of weight that the cable tray has to support. A heavy curtain will put more stress on the cable tray than a light curtain. The way in which the curtain is attached to the cable tray will also affect the amount of stress on the cable tray. If the curtain is attached directly to the cable tray, it will put more stress on the cable tray than if the curtain is attached to a separate support system. Always consult with a qualified electrical engineer before hanging anything from a cable tray. The engineer can assess the load-bearing capacity of the cable tray and determine whether it is safe to hang the curtain from it. In conclusion, while there may not be a specific code that prohibits hanging non-electrical equipment from cable trays, it is generally not a good idea. It can create a safety hazard, damage the electrical cables, and make it difficult to access and maintain the cables. If you must hang something from a cable tray, consult with a qualified electrical engineer first. The engineer can assess the load-bearing capacity of the cable tray and determine whether it is safe to hang the equipment from it. Remember that the primary function of a cable tray is to support electrical cables and associated fittings. Any other use should be carefully considered and evaluated to ensure safety and compliance with all applicable codes and standards. Furthermore, always prioritize safety and ensure that any modifications or additions to the electrical system are performed by qualified personnel and in accordance with all relevant regulations. Finally, remember that the NEC is a living document that is updated regularly to reflect changes in technology and best practices. It is important to stay up to date on the latest version of the NEC and to consult with qualified professionals when making decisions about electrical installation. The goal is to create a safe and reliable electrical system that meets the needs of the building and its occupants.